All right, today the January 6th committee released the transcript of its closed-door interview with Cassidy Hutchinson, the former aide to Donald Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows. You will remember back in June, Cassidy Hutchinson gave damning testimony at a public hearing about what she saw and heard in the White House leading up to the attempted coup on January 6th. She was, in many cases, in the room where it happened. And when she spoke to the committee again privately in September, she told them about the difficulty she had in securing a lawyer who would not suck her back into Trump world. Hutchinson said, quote, "I knew the moment that I went back and I had to get a Trump world attorney. In a lot of scenarios that I've been privy to, once you're looped in, especially financially with them, there's sort of no turning back." She also relayed a conversation she had with her mother after people in Trump's orbit did find her a lawyer. Quote, "She asked me, like, aren't you really happy? Like, this is great. I'm so happy they connected you with someone." And I remember saying to her, like kind of snarly laughing, saying, "No, I'm effed." And she was like, "What? What do you mean?" And I was like, "No, I'm completely indebted to these people." And I was like, "And they will ruin my life, Mom, if I do anything that they don't want me to do. They will ruin my life, Mom." I got the perfect person to talk about this right here, right at the table with me. Michael Cohen was Donald Trump's personal attorney for years before testifying against the ex-president. He's the host of the Mea Culpa podcast. He's the author of Revenge, How Donald Trump Weaponized the U.S. Department of Justice Against His Critics. And Michael, you make two very interesting points. You and I were chatting outside. The Cassidy Hutchinson testimony in and of itself is not nearly as big a deal as some people would like it to be for a lot of reasons, but it was compelling when we heard it. But your bigger point is you immediately recognized how Cassidy Hutchinson was treated, how she was lawyered up, because you said that's entirely out of Trump's playbook.
It's right out of the playbook. I've been talking about it, and Adam Schiff was spot on when he said it. What they do is they will place an attorney with you, not to protect you, but again, to protect the boss. And it's the same language. You may remember I had put out a whole series of emails. Bob Costello at the time, who wanted to join my defense team when I was first raided and so on. It wasn't to protect me. It was so that he can go back to Rudy Giuliani and provide him with all the information so that Donald knows where I'm at, what I'm testifying to, if testifying at all, and basically ensure that I stay on his message. Let's not forget also that they did the same thing with Paul Manafort when they had the lawyer speaking to their lawyer in regard to the interrogatories that Trump was supposed to respond to.
Right.
And somehow
the written questions that he was allowed to provide a written response.
That's right, because he was too busy running the country in order to go and to testify. But it was identical to Paul Manafort's, and then they realized that Manafort was lying as well. And so there was no charges or there was no wrongdoing raised against Trump on that either. But yeah, you make a great point with Cassidy Hutchinson. I don't believe, look, let me be very clear that I think she is incredibly brave. And I know, because I know what it means to testify truth to power. So I give her all the credit in the world. But I don't believe that her testimony will do what so many people are talking, simply because there is nothing to back it up. It is all hearsay, and Trump will lie with impunity to any member of Congress, to press, to you, to anyone, in order to protect himself. There's no emails, there's no text messages. That's why I constantly say what Jack Smith needs to do is you have to go after the stuff you could prove. Right. And that's the Mar-a-Lago documents. Because
Mar-a-Lago is actually documents, which Donald Trump had said and acknowledged he had in his possession, because he had said at various times that they're his, or he did his Jedi mind trick and declassified them. Right. So the existence of them are in his possession is not in dispute.
He claims he took them. They're his. And more importantly, they're mine. I want them back.
Right.
And so there is nothing to argue now. He made the statements. This isn't hearsay anymore. This is out of the horse's mouth.
Right, because as you say, he doesn't have texts, he doesn't have emails. So Jack Smith is now looking at Mar-a-Lago. He's looking at the phone call to Brad Raffensperger and the attempt to overturn the election in the state of Georgia. And he's looking at the January 6th committee. Believe it or not, as we all stand here and wait for this report to come out, you think the information they've got, that both of those other cases are better and stronger if you're going to go after Trump than this one?
Yeah, actually, I believe that this is probably the weakest of them all. And I think the second weakest is Georgia, for the same reason. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to go down. And Donald doesn't care about any of them. And I hope that they're watching the show and they heed the same warning that I gave to the Republicans and to the world when I testified before the House Oversight Committee. Donald doesn't care about you, doesn't care about me, doesn't care about anyone except for himself. There will be a lot of people that are going to go down by Donald in order to protect Donald, the boss.
So why do you think Georgia's not as good as Mar-a-Lago? Because you do have Donald Trump's voice on a phone telling Brad Raffensperger to find 11,800 votes.
Because what he'll do is he'll claim that, I believe that the election was stolen from me, that there are 11,700 votes that was stolen from me in Georgia. It's all a matter of what I believe, my intent in that phone conversation, not what we all put for the intent. It's what Donald will claim. And again, there's recording, but he'll say that I just want him to get me back my 11,700 votes that was stolen from me. Because it all goes, again, to mens rea, to the guilty mind.
What do you think about the tax return situation? We finally found out that Donald Trump was never under audit when he kept saying, I'll release my tax returns once they're out of audit. In fact, he should have been audited, and he wasn't. That's another entirely different question. And he doesn't pay much in the way of taxes. You combine that with the findings of the New York case, where they were undervaluing properties for purposes of taxes and overvaluing for purposes of insurance.
Right. And that's, again, part of look at the numbers. It's, again, part of the Trump playbook. He'll tell you, no, it makes no difference. He'll say it on television, which he did. Anyone who pays taxes is stupid. It's funny because the 2 years that he paid $1,500 in total, I paid over $3 million. And I'm the one that was charged with tax evasion. Yeah. Right? It's absolutely insane. That's why Senator Dick Durbin filed that request to the Inspector General of the Internal Revenue Service to open up an investigation, not just into Comey, into McCabe, but also to include my case, because I've never been contacted by the IRS. I was never given an opportunity to even find out that they believe that there was a tax violation. Right. That's called a tax omission, not a tax evasion. Right. Not when you don't have cash. It's all, every dollar went into Capital One Bank, which coincidentally was located at the base of the building that I live in. And I go into great length of this in the book Revenge, because as I write in the headline, how Donald Trump weaponized the United States Justice Department against his critics, that's what Donald is doing right now. Right. He's using that line against the Biden administration, how they're weaponizing the Justice Department to go after him. The only difference is he's guilty. He's guilty of all of these things. It's not whether he is or he isn't. It's what you can prove. And it goes, again, back to the emails, the lack of emails, lack of texts, and lack of documentation.
All right, let's see what Jack Smith and the Department of Justice and Merrick Garland do. Michael, good to see you as always. Thank you, my friend.
Good to see you all.
Michael Cohen. All right.